Bonjour everyone and welcome back to my channel, The Waves of Your Soul. Today's video is going to be a fun, light-hearted tarot and oracle deck haul where I'm going to show you my recent tarot and oracle purchases, the recent decks that I have joined my tarot library. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think of them. Some of them I've already been trying for a few weeks, so I can tell you my thoughts. Some of them are more recent. They might not be full-on reviews, but they will definitely be first impressions. I have a good mix of tarot and oracle decks, and today everything I'm going to show is mass market, so it's going to be fairly affordable, easy to find in all your local bookstore, witchy shops, online retailers. And if you've been on my channel before, you know I have quite eclectic taste, and so you're gonna see that in today's deck haul as well. If this is actually the first video you watch of mine, hello, my name is Marine. I'm a French tarot reader and a lover of everything tarot, oracle and self-empowerment related. I post lots of videos such as this one talking about tarot and oracle, which is something I love, and I also post pick card readings, empowering tarot guidance. Make sure to subscribe because I upload every single week. So I just want to say before I get into it that with all of my tarot videos, whether they're deck hauls, whether they are my favorite decks that I'm showcasing, they're never really here to make anyone feel bad. I don't want you to feel like you have to buy new decks. I don't want you to feel like you have to have many decks to be a good tarot reader. I'm purely just showing you decks that I have joined my collection recently that I have enjoyed, in case one, you're in the market for a new deck and you're wondering what's out there, or two, if you're like me, enjoy beautiful artwork and just want to appreciate the cards. I really enjoy watching those kind of videos from other tarot lovers. I really love hearing what decks people use, why they use them, what really kind of decks resonates with their soul. It's something that I find so fascinating because tarot is so vast, there's something for everyone. So this is just the aim of this video, showing you what I've acquired recently, tell you what I think of it. So if you're up for that, grab a little beverage. Let's get through my September-October deck haul. So if you couldn't tell by my very heavy accent, I am French and I currently live on a tropical island that is off the coast of Madagascar called Reunion. So getting decks to me is quite a struggle, I'm not gonna lie, and so it happens very often that I will order a deck and that it might take 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year, sometimes even a year and a half to get to me. So what has happened in 2021 is that I am ending up receiving a lot of decks that I actually ordered in 2020, and they're all making their way to me now. Because of the pandemics, getting things shipped overseas has been so difficult, especially considering I live so far away that, you know, there's not that many flights connection to the island I live on now because of the pandemic, etc. Things just take a lot longer. And so what's happened, if you watch any of my recent deck hauls, is that a lot of the decks I'm receiving at the moment are decks that I paid for a year ago, 9 months ago. This is just things that I completely thought were lost and that now are finally making their way to me. So the first deck like that took its sweet time to come, but that finally made its way to my collection, is the Pre-Raphaelite Tarot, and that's the first deck I want to mention today. This I ordered on Book Depository in 2020 and it only arrived about a few weeks ago, just after I filmed my latest deck haul. The Pre-Raphaelite Tarot is a Los Scarabeo deck. It comes in one of those little tug boxes, and inside you will have one of those little white books in lots of different languages, because that is usually what they do for Los Scarabeo decks. These are the backs, and honestly those are some of the most beautiful backings I have ever seen. When I compare them to other backs from my tarot collection, this has to be in my top 3 favorite backings. It feels very like William Morris inspired, and I absolutely love the bright vivid flowers. The peacock and the owl is so gorgeous. So this deck is by Los Scarabeo, as mentioned, and all the decks I'm going to show you today are mass market, and so they should be very easily found. You could find them on Amazon or Book Depository or your local bookshops, etc. So this one is, as the name suggests, Pre-Raphaelite Tarot, is inspired by the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, which is a group of artists united by a similar sense of philosophy of art. And so this tarot deck is inspired by those specific artists. I am not a super expert at art, for sure, in the sense that I wouldn't necessarily know on top of my head which artwork belongs to which painter, but looking through this deck I can definitely recognize some of the paintings that I have seen, whether online or in museums. Especially when I used to live in London, I would go to museums quite a lot. I lived in London for almost a decade. If you don't know, museums in England are free, which is wonderful. I used to spend a lot of my weekends going there. Some paintings definitely resonate with me, like I know this is inspired by John Waterhouse artwork. Others will go over my head. I just really wanted this deck, not just for the artistic expression of it, even though I find the artwork beautiful, but also because you can totally read it just as an RWS, but an RWS that has a very nice aesthetic kind of vibe to it. So as you can see, it very much follows the RWS, you know, like swords are swords, cups are cups, wands are wands, and pentacles are pentacles. The major arcana is numbered. This is a very famous painting as well that it's been inspired from. I'm sure a lot of you would have seen that particular painting. I will try during my editing to insert an image of the painting that this is inspired by. Yeah, this is a very beautiful deck. It feels very romantic, and also very romantic in the sense not just of relationship, but in the literary movement sense. You know, that kind of nostalgia. In French we would say spleen. Everyone looks very thoughtful, everyone looks like they're caught up in their feelings, if everyone looks very introspective. For that reason, it really called to me. I find the artwork really beautiful, and I've been wanting this deck for a really long time, and finally last year I decided, you know what, it's mass market. It just was one of those that was never on top of my list, and finally I decided, you know what, let me get it, and I'm so happy I did. It's actually a really solid deck. It has a very emotional quality to it that I can't quite put my fingers on, but every reading I've done with it have been very profound and very kind of emotionally led. Maybe it's because of that romantic feel I was telling you about, and I'm not talking about romantic in a relationship sense, although I'm sure you could do great relationship readings with this deck, but more so in a very emotional, heartful, vulnerable kind of way. I really enjoy the way that this artist has paid homage to the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. This particular artist, Giuliano Costa, happens to be the person that created the Jack-o'-lantern tarot, which is a tarot deck that's coming out this year around Halloween, or will be after Halloween, or it's coming out either in October or November. I talked about this deck in one of my recent videos where I talk about recent tarot releases. I'm considering getting that Jack-o'-lantern tarot purely because I enjoy this artist style so much, so I'm excited to see what else he does. I can't wait to watch reviews and walkthroughs of his new deck, find out if I'll be purchasing it, but I'm definitely interested. It's catching my eyes, and this one I'm so pleased I finally picked up. I've only read with it for myself, but I can't wait to start using it for my pick a card readings, etc. on my channel, so watch out for that. Okay, let's move on to the only non-tarot or oracle card game I'm gonna show in this particular deck haul, and this is Patrick Valenza Royal Mischief Transformation playing card. So this is by US Game. It comes in a little two-piece box, and as you can see, it is playing cards. What makes this deck so great is the fact that those playing cards have been drawn in to create little scenes by Patrick Valenza. And if you are not familiar with Patrick Valenza created the Deviant Moon Tarot. Let me grab it. He's created, quite a few decks. I know he has some Marseille decks out there, he has some Oracle decks, some Lenormand decks, but this is the only other deck I have of him, which is the Deviant Moon Tarot, and I have the borderless edition. As you can see, his style is very unique and very, like, you see it, you know it's him, it's that very quirky, spooky, dark, distorted, and yet very, I find, quite humorous quality to it that makes his work so distinctive and so brilliant. And so I didn't even know this deck existed until I was browsing on Book Depository, as I do when I have some free time, and I was caught up by this really cool playing card deck that has been drawn, like I said, by him to fill in and create scenes. So as you can see here, we have like all the hearts here, but he has created a scene here that is called Drunken Fools, and this deck is very quirky, unusual, it's punchy, it's funky, it's weird, it is strange, but in the best way possible, and I absolutely love this deck. Look at this one, Schooling the Little Devils. I love the fact that he has managed to create scenes around the, you know, the different card numbers. Even the devil needs rest. Brilliant. So actually I've been enjoying using this card as a little oracle. I have not beastly ballerinas. This makes me laugh. I don't know why this always makes me of Alyssa Edwards in RuPaul's Drag Race when she just, you know, goes beast. If you know, you know. Let me know in the comments. Any Drag Race lovers, you know. The jokers are really great. Grandma's Grimace. I've been using this card game more as an oracle than for cartomancy because I'm not very familiar with pure cartomancy yet. This is something I want to learn. I'm planning on doing a course on cartomancy, like learning how to read playing cards. But you know, there's other things first I want to get around to. And this deck, I didn't really feel like I needed to learn playing cards to use because of the scenes. I felt like I could just use it for pure kind of oracle vibe, and I love the artwork. And as an oracle deck, it has been brilliant. As you can see, the cardstock is quite glossy, so that's one thing that's a bit annoying. And I forgot to say that those are the backs, by the way, very plain card feel, and it came pre-edged in this kind of like silver metallic. If I get the court cards, I will just transfer them to the equivalent of tarot court cards, so that's how, as an energy, so that's how I read mine. I've used this actually in my October monthly pick a card. All of the decks I was using had a bit of a spooky vibe. It's been so great. It really echoed so well with the message that were coming through. So if you're interested to see it in action, check out my October pick a card reading. This one is great. Lover's Spat, and the hearts have been turned into lips. Honestly, this deck is great. If you are looking for a fun hybrid deck between playing cards and oracle, I think this is really awesome, especially if you enjoy Patrick Valenza's artwork, then you would definitely enjoy this one. Not every card is dark, but it's definitely full of sense of humor, and when I need a little message or I need something to pair with my tarot and I need to not take myself too seriously, this has been brilliant. Okay, let's move on to the next deck. This is another tarot deck, and this is called the Good Karma Tarot, but I have the French version. So in French it is called the Tarot du Bon Karma, because, you know, we weren't being very original and we just pretty much copied the English name. These are the backs, and I know that they're the same for the English or the French. And as you can see, the cardstock is quite glossy, and I believe it's the same in the English version. And I've edged my copy in orange because I felt like it. In the French and English version, it comes with a proper book-sized guidebook that is very great. It has a ton of spreads, it has a lot of great information, especially if you're a beginner. As you're gonna see, this deck is very modern, very bright, very colorful. If you're a beginner out there and you find it quite difficult to connect with Pixie's artwork and you want something that is very rooted in modern day life, I would totally recommend this deck, because not only is the deck great and it does follow, you know, the RWS, but add its own twist, has a great guidebook that you'll be able to reference and spreads and everything to get you started. This one is I actually found in my local bookshop, and we don't have a lot of tarot decks where I live, so I was actually quite surprised to find it. And on top of that, to see that it was, you know, the French version, that it had already been translated, etc., because I know that it came out in England, or in English, sorry, not that long ago. But I picked up this deck because I knew from watching reviews and walkthroughs from other people that it was quite diverse, especially in terms of ethnicity, which is something that is very important to me, especially when it's a deck that is modern and that is rooted in modern day life. I think it's super important that we see diversity, especially for me if it's a deck that I'm going to be using on my channel for pick a card readings. And then once I am finally able to do private readings, paid readings, which is something I really want to be able to offer, but unfortunately right now I'm having to battle some personal health issues, so I'm not really in a place where I would be comfortable offering paid readings in a timely manner, but this is definitely something I would love to be able to offer and that I'm working on. And so once I'm finally able to do that, this is the kind of deck that I would feel comfortable using, because I feel like it does a good job at depicting the world we live in, and also it is non-threatening. This is a great deck that you could be using for anyone, and this will not threaten anyone, this shouldn't really trigger anyone, and so this one feels like a great everyday workhorse deck. I love the characters' expression on the different cards. I think they do a great job at depicting what is going on. Even though it's RWS kind of inspired, I like the fact that there's always added little symbolism. This is not just stripped of any kind of meaning, it just condenses every single meaning to its essence. Like for the Magician, we still have the lemniscate, we still have this idea of like channeling something above the crown chakra. You really find some ideas that are linked to the more traditional decks, but they're just like implemented and hidden in there. But you know, if you know really well your tarot deck, your like RWS and stuff, you're gonna recognize where the little symbols are hidden. For me, this would be a great everyday deck. It's a deck I would feel comfortable reading for everyone, maybe even for someone who's younger. I don't think this would be too threatening. For example, the Strength card, you have the lion on the back. I find that's quite clever as a tattoo. And this is just really good. And I was when I very first saw walkthroughs of this deck, the first like cover, I thought it was going to be too cutesy and maybe too, how can I say that, too simple. But actually it is very good and it goes deeper than I thought. So for the lovers, you still have, you know, in the traditional lovers card, you have an apple tree and a tree on fire, and you have the angel at the back. Here we still have the tree and the fire symbolism, which is very interesting. Some of the cards go a little bit different. For example, the Five of Wands, you normally see 5 people fighting. This is like 2 people standing back to back, but you can sense here the tension, the disagreement, the conflicting kind of ideas, etc. So I think it's really great, and I feel like this deck I judged too quickly, and I can't wait to be using it more on my channel. I can't wait to be using it for my pick a card readings. I have already used it for my friends as well, and they really resonated with it because they're not really into tarot. They love me reading their cards, but they don't really like tarot, you know, they're not like me obsessed with it. And so they tend to appreciate decks that are modern, that are non-threatening, and still that can deliver real messages. And I feel like this does a really good job. Like someone who doesn't know anything about tarot can still look at the card, understand what's going on, and not feel like they are being personally attacked, or at the same time not feel like they are being cuddled. I would really recommend it whether you're advanced or beginner, but especially if you're a beginner and you're looking for something to start, this is great. If you're a professional reader and you want a deck that you feel comfortable reading for lots of different people from every walk of life, I would definitely recommend this one as well. And this is the Good Karma Tarot. Okay, let's move on to an oracle deck. So this is an animal oracle deck. Here are the backs, and I have the French version, and so I'll show you the box because I know the box is absolutely the same in English or in French. So in French, this is called L'Oracle du Règne Animal by Sarah Wilder, and like I said, this is originally an English deck. So the box in English is the same, I believe, and I'm not too sure what the name in English will be. I'll put the name of it in the description. This is an animal oracle deck. It comes with a really great guidebook. Every single card, you get quite a big meaning. I'm sure a lot of you will recognize this deck because it's actually been around for a while. It's one of those that, again, I never really got around to picking up, and then finally I decided that I was gonna do it, and then I realized that they had translated it in French, so it was gonna be easier for me to get because I could just order it through my local bookshop, and so I did, and I'm actually so happy that they released it in French. Not that I mind using English decks, I have a ton of English decks, but I think it's nice that they're translating a lot more English decks into French, and I hope that they're gonna start doing the reversed and sharing more French decks in English. That would be awesome, especially for French artists. So I'm sure a lot of you will recognize this deck because I feel like the fact that it has very different borders and an animal on each card, it's quite striking. This is one that if you've seen a walkthrough or if you're seen in a reading, you will remember. So each card has a different animal, and on each card you have an image of the animal, you have the name of the animal, and you have a keyword. And as you can see, the border matches the animal. You also have for each of the card a number here and a different mandala, and in the different mandalas represent different elements, because the way that this deck is divided is that you have earth animals, you have water animals, you have air animals, you have fire animals, and you have spirit animals. Air animals are not necessarily bird, it's more about energy really, and about what the element refers to. I am so happy I finally got this deck. It's one that was on my wish list for so long. So I think this, for the French version anyways, this is what inspired the backings, but I feel like the backings might not be the same in the English version, so maybe check that out. And in the French version it came in with this copper kind of edging, but I don't know about the English one. I really enjoy animal decks. I have 3, I think. I have the Spirit Animal Oracle by Colette Baron Reid, which was my very first oracle, and actually I love that one. And I have the Whispers of the Ocean, which is only about underwater animals, which, you know, my name is Marine, my channel is The Waves of Your Soul, you know I'm an ocean lover, it's pretty much obvious. And then I have another one that's an Etsy one that my friend Gemma got me for my birthday that I really love. Then to use them all for different purposes, and I really enjoy working with animal medicine, so I don't feel like I need to only have one animal deck because they all bring different things. For me, there's a few necessary things for an animal deck. One is that there's some animals that I look out for. Some of them is the chameleon. This is one of my absolute favorite animal, and it's one of my favorite absolute animal to work with, because actually where I live, it's an animal that I see very regularly in the wild. We have some in the garden, we'll see some in the forest, and so for me the chameleon is like an animal that I work with very much. Some of other ones are the whale, you know, because again this is something that I might see in more easier for me to see than for example a fox or a deer, which we don't have where I live because of you know, tropical island vibe. So when for me an animal deck only has northern European kind of animals, I'm not usually interested. But when they have like this one, for example, such a variety of animals, whether they're from northern hemisphere, southern hemispheres, and lots of different kind of birds and mammals and insects, I find that so cool because this is something that I really appreciate. I feel like everyone can find the animal they're looking for, and those borders really, let's be real, the borders are what really sold them for me. I find it so beautiful. I am really enjoying using it with, I read the guidebook obviously because it also teaches me about animal medicine, about animal behavior. I have really enjoyed using it with my mom. My mom loves this oracle deck. She loves to pull a card and get her message because she loves animal as well. So I feel like this would be a great gift as well if you're trying to look for a gift for someone who maybe likes to have, you know, little messages of the day, something still empowering and something that's going to make you think, but not something too overwhelming. But the messages are very helpful and they're not like sugarcoating or anything. And I also can't wait to use this for my, again, pick a card reading. I think it could be great to pick a different pile using the different images because they're so striking. So overall, I'm so pleased that I finally picked up this deck. Let's move on to a French deck. So surprise! You thought you could get through a whole video on my channel and not be force-fed some kind of a French deck somewhere? Come on, you should know better by now. I love to rep the Frenchies. This is what I love doing. I feel like there's so many tarot channels out there, so many people showcasing the beautiful decks that are created by English-speaking creators. Not that many, there are some, but not that many videos showing French decks in English, and so I actually love sharing French decks with you guys because maybe those decks are not the ones that you would normally see, and you seem to really enjoy seeing them as well. Every time I show French decks, I always get nice comments saying that you enjoy seeing different things, so I'm gonna continue doing that. This deck I pre-ordered I think around May, and it took like 4 months to come to me. Again, pandemic and the fact that I live on a rock in the middle of the ocean. But this is called Oracle Botanique des Divinités by Iris Elinac. So as you can see, it comes in a very beautiful 2-piece box, and it costs 27 euros. So you can get this deck most likely on amazon.fr, and this is an oracle deck. It comes with a very beautiful chunky guidebook that is in French. So Iris Elinac actually has also some, I think she has an Etsy shop where she also sells in like indie oracle decks, and originally she is a perfume person. Perfume person, that's not a word. I don't really know how you would say that. Aromatherapist, and a perfume creator, so she works with very closely with essential oils, plants, and then she also obviously is very into cards, and so she decided to mix both of her loves and to create different oracle decks. Now, this particular oracle, called L'Oracle Botanique des Divinités, is based on plants mixed with mythological figures. So here are the backs, and the backs are gorgeous. Let me show them to you. They're quite glossy cardstock, so I don't know if you'll be able to see, but hopefully you will. The background feels like very constellation, and then you have this beautiful gold stamping on it. Feels very Roman or Greek, and then you have golden edges as well. The reason why it feels so Roman and Greek is because the majority of the mythological figures are gonna be inspired by Roman or Greek mythology, and you have a couple of Egyptian as well. So this is a collage style deck where Iris reused vintage photography to paste with, you know, cosmic fields and plants, etc., to create the imagery. Every single card is going to correspond to a different plant mixed with a god, goddess, muse, mythological hero, etc. So for example, here we have Persephone, which a lot of you will know from Greek mythology. Of course, Persephone is linked to the pomegranate, so the plant or fruit here is a pomegranate. And so here we have the French keyword for Persephone, grenade is pomegranate, and here you have another little keyword here that is translated to make a choice. Every single card has the name of the mythological feature, the name of the plant, and a keyword. So for example, Pan is linked to this, I don't know the name in English, wheat something, and it's linked to seduction. I really like this particular style of artwork, the mixed media between the vintage pictures and the plant, and then the collage work that Iris does on top of it is brilliant. I love the fact that she has linked plants with each of the mythological features, because that for me is so unusual and new. You know, some of them are very obvious, like Athena is linked to the olive branch, the olive tree, and the keyword is peace. Nothing groundbreaking here, we're used to this association. But some of those plants I never heard of. Raphael is linked to the incense, and the keyword is transcendent. So I think it's really interesting. This deck has some scary cards. I need to find it. Most of the cards are beautiful. This is the Hades, god of death in Greek mythology, so of course somber, and it's linked to Cyprus, and it's all about mourning and grieving. Some of those cards are a little bit more scary, actually one of them, because they depict some also creatures, not just gods, goddesses, etc. Let me try and find it. This is the scary card of the deck. It's fucking terrifying, I'm not gonna lie. Every time I have this card come up, I'm like, oh hell no! Cover it up, turn it back, grab my nearby rose quartz crystal to calm my nerves, because it gives me a bit of a panic. But jokes aside, it's terrifying. But it's linked to Phobos, and it's all about fear. Unconscious fear, monsters under the bed, subconscious fears, etc. And actually it does a great job at depicting that, because it's really scary. Let's put it away. Apart from this one, most of the cards are very, you know, aesthetically pleasing, and overall this deck is very beautiful. So this is Apollo, it's linked to the laurel and success. Why am I showing you this deck? Well, because I got it recently, so I thought maybe you would enjoy seeing it, and also because potentially I don't think you necessarily need to speak French to use this deck, because a lot of those beings, muses, gods, etc., if you're into mythology, you would definitely recognize them, and so you could use this deck in your own way by using those to work with your chosen divinity, especially if you work with a Greek or Roman pantheon. Then I feel like you could totally use this deck. If you're a lover of flowers, plants, etc., you could definitely recognize the plants there and use it like that. Of course, if you are wanting to slate the guidebook has some really great messages. For each of the cards you have an excerpt. Most of the time it's from Homer's, so whether it's from the Odyssey, etc., it's an, you know, excerpt from ancient Greek fables. Then you'll have a text around who that particular divinity or muse or being is, and you'll also have a bit of an information about the plant, and finally you have a message around the meaning of the card. You have an astrological association, you have a stone association, an element, and a color. So the guidebook is packed full with information actually, and so if you were to want to translate it, you could definitely get a lot out of it. But if you also just wanted to use it for the card and use this deck intuitively and apply your own meanings based on the knowledge you have of those mythological beings or the plants, then I think it would be a great one. And I forgot to say that it comes with a beautiful little pouch as well. That whole production of the quality of this oracle is beautiful. And this is l'Oracle Botanique des Divinités. Okay, let's move on to my second to last deck I wanted to share. This is a deck I mentioned I ordered after one of my favorites video. I think it was my July favorites. I mentioned that I had rewatched all of the Game of Thrones TV show. I did, one of those where you just start from season 1 and watch it all the way to season 8. I watched Game of Thrones when it came out. I really enjoyed it, despite the controversial ending. But it had been a while since I had rewatched it fully from start to finish, which I did this year. I really enjoyed it, and then I realized, you know what, I don't have the Game of Thrones tarot. So I ordered it back in July, I think, and it actually didn't take too long. Like, we are now in October. For me, this is express shipping. Like, a couple of months is so fast. So I decided to finally pick up the Game of Thrones tarot because despite, like I said, the controversial ending of the TV show, it is still a world and a series I very much enjoy. So here is what the Game of Thrones tarot look like. You have a beautiful box like this. The production actually is really great. You open it like this, and then inside you have one side for the deck, and here you have a proper little guidebook that is hardbound and really great. The guidebook is brilliant. I highly recommend you reading it. It doesn't look like much. When you look at it like this, you think, oh, it's going to be one of those, little white guidebooks, but actually it's packed full with great information, and the spreads are outstanding. There's about 6, 7, maybe 10 spreads. I'm not even sure. There's a lot, and some of those are amazing. My favorite spread out of this deck is called Spread of the Maesters. So if you know, in Game of Thrones there are some kind of a guild of wise people, wise masters. They're called maesters, and they all study some different kind of field. There's an astronomy, construction, history, etc. And they've designed this spread inspired by the Maesters, where each card corresponds to a specific field, but they've linked that to current day-to-day life now. So for example, the astronomy Maesters would be your known universe, the smithing Maester would be work and skills, and the astrology would be future prediction. And so you pull a card for each of your different life area, but inspired by the Maesters. It's amazing. Honestly, the spreads in this particular guidebook are so clever because they really inspire themselves from the series and the book. Okay, let's move on to the card. So here are the back of the card, and the series, you know that this is the Iron Throne. And so I heard that when this actually deck came out, because I feel like it's been out for 2 years now, I heard that when this deck first came out, the cardstock was actually linen cardstock. This is no longer the case. So if you watch any of the people's walkthroughs that are 2 years old, be aware that the cardstock is now more cardboardy. It's a bit glossy, not too much, but the cardstock is a bit thin and it's a bit cardboardy, definitely not linen. Not that it matters to me. I've said it many times on my channel. I don't really care about cardstock, but I just want you to know, in case you're expecting really nice linen cardstock, it's not it. They've definitely changed it. The deck is obviously inspired by the Game of Thrones series. You will recognize most of the characters in this deck, and I find the choices that they have done so well. I don't have a lot of what I call fandom decks inspired by fandom movements. I think the only one I have is the Star Wars Tarot, which is an indie deck that I have shown on my channel before. The Nightmare Before Christmas Tarot, which is a mass market deck that came out last year, which was very disappointing. It was lazy, the pips were lazy, it felt like a money cash grab kind of vibe because it definitely didn't put as much effort into the major as much as they did the pips. And then this is my third fandom deck. Having two different experiences, the Star Wars Tarot being brilliant and the Nightmare Before Christmas Tarot being disappointing, I was a bit apprehensive with this one, but at the same time I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. I watched a couple of reviews from people and I realized that it's actually really clever. This deck is definitely not a disappointment, and I think if you enjoy Game of Thrones, you will be really enjoying of this deck because it does do a great job of inspiring itself from every single main event of the TV show, minus the ending, which was, you know, majorly the part of what people were pissed off about. This one is more based on the first 6 seasons, I will say, and so for me it's like all the good bits of Game of Thrones. I find that this deck, if you have trouble learning the courts, let's say you don't really know how to read the courts and you love Game of Thrones, the choices for each of the court cards make so much sense based on who the characters are that I think this deck would be so great at helping someone learning the court cards, the energy of the court card. I think that obviously you could read this deck without really knowing anything about Game of Thrones because it does follow the RWS, you know, 6 of spears, spears are wands, you still see someone on a horse riding through a procession, something that looks victorious, etc. But let's be real, if you're interested about this deck, most likely it's because you like Game of Thrones. I thought it was gonna be gimmicky at first, I'm not gonna lie, and maybe this is why I took so much time to pick it up, because when I first watched reviews of this deck, it was when it came out, and at the time I didn't really know tarot as much as I do now. Obviously it was 2 years ago, so I would like to think that I've made progress since, and I think at the time maybe I thought it was a bit gimmicky. It really is not, and especially using it now after having rewatched the whole series, I find that it delivers very powerful, interesting messages, and it has helped me look at some cards differently, like the Justice card, because it's not just about the fact that he's a just man and that he's trying to do everything fair and that he's trying to make sure that people, you know, what is it that he says? Like, the man who gives the sentence has to carry the sword, something along those lines. I think that's what he says in the very first episodes of the TV show, and then, you know, unfortunately, I won't spoil you, but let's just say his ending is not so happy. And everything about his life has to do with justice or injustice per se, and so to have him sitting on the Iron Throne as justice really shows the light side of justice and his valor, his value, his ideals, what he's trying to teach, his heritage, what he's trying to leave behind, but also the flip coin of that, the dark side of justice, which is sometimes life is not fair. Sometimes you try to do the right thing and people take the piss. Sometimes life is shit and something, you know, people will take advantage and you're gonna get played, and, you know, it's just not gonna be fair. So a lot of those choices I find are really intelligent, and they have helped me look at some of the cards in different way. Like the Fool is actually so clever. I love this Fool. We see Tyrion going to feed the dragon. Dragons have been locked up by Daenerys in a tower, and she has disappeared, and so they need to be fed, but a lot of people are scared to go in there because, you know, full life dragon that are probably gonna kill you. And the only person who's brave enough to go see the dragon to try and feed them is Tyrion. And so we don't really know, you know, is he foolish or is he inspired? Is he actually spontaneous, or is he just completely walking into getting himself killed? Everything there is so packed full of meaning that I think it makes this deck really clever. Overall, I've really enjoyed using this deck. For me, it's a breath of fresh air. It's helping me look at tarot a different way, stimulating my creative juices. It's helping me to look at court cards or a certain type of cards in a different way, because now that especially now I've rewatched it recently, I can really remember what each of the cards depict, and it's been a great experience and an experience I really enjoyed. Okay, let's wrap it up with the last deck I wanted to mention today, and this is another French deck. I can't be helped, I'm sorry. This is L'Oracle des Medio by Stéphanie Abelen, and it was illustrated by Noémie Tricoche. First off, I want to say a huge thank you to a subscriber of mine, Semplimente. Thank you so much if you're watching this video, because it is thanks to your comment that I went out and looked at this deck. I had seen a couple of images of it, and I actually hadn't really given it the time of day to do my research at the time, and thanks to your comment I went and looked a little bit more into it, and now it's turning out to be a really great purchase that I'm so happy I got. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to everyone as well who leaves me many comments, who engages, who likes, subscribe, recommends me things. I read every single one of your comments. I try and reply to every single one of your comments because I'm so grateful for everyone who takes the time to one, watch my video, because I know there's so many out there to be watching, and two, for any one of you who comment or likes, it really does mean the world. And so thank you so much. This is my little minute of appreciation. L'Oracle des Medio is a French deck. You could definitely be using this deck whether you speak English or not, because the images are so they kind of speak for themselves. As you can see, it comes in one of those little boxes that opens like this, and it has a little guidebook. To be fair, the guidebook is not really, you don't even need to translate it, because for me this deck speaks on its own. I think this deck is really great, and it's got an interesting structure. So as you can see, there's two parts. The first part is the majority of the cards have this pink purple backing, and then you have about 15 cards that have these blue backings. So the first part here are the divination card, and so this deck is actually different from a lot of the decks I have, because you can actually do predictive readings with this. A lot of the oracle decks I have are based around self-empowering messages, healing, personal development. I don't have a lot of predictive oracle deck. I have, you know, some Lenormand, and of course you can do predictive reading with tarot. Especially I don't have a predictive reading oracle deck with images that are so modern, so vibrant, so beautiful. And so I find this deck that for me it really fits a specific hole that I had in my tarot collection. A lot of the more divinatory kind of decks out there have quite older vintage, I think, looks. As you can see, you have an image for each of the different card, you have a keyword, and you have a number. This is more predictory leaning because you have months card, like in the next month, in the next year, in the next 3 months, so you can date your reading. And then you're gonna have keywords that are gonna really help you to get deep into your question, especially if you like to do some spread like past, present, future, things like that. This is perfect for that. So for example, this particular card, we have sadness card, here we have work, enterprise, here we have rancor, here we have disputes, fights, here is in the next month. As you can see, it's fairly easy to understand what's going on even if you don't speak French. Like here you see the calendar. This is all about acceptation, and it's the same word in English or in French, so that makes it easy. You have abundance, and again abundance, they're very similar in French or in English, so that's easy to follow. Here we have karmic release, karmic advancement. Here we have the loved one card. The colors are so vibrant, and this deck feels like a mix between modern day and fantasy. Like there's a mermaid, there's like someone fighting a monster. It does have a bit of a fantasy feel, but at the same time it feels quite modern. I think this deck would be totally intuitively usable. The images are fairly easy. Like the good balance of keywords, we have some positive cards, negative cards, although, you know, putting those in air quotes. But you know, you have some cards that are linked to more difficult feelings, some cards that are more linked to abundance and success, etc. So it does give you a really good variety of answers. Here we have the end of cycle, crossroads, confusion and doubt, karmic blockages, stagnation time, this jealousy, evil eye. Here we have in the next year, love, durable love, ex-partner, close event, in the next trimester, message to come today. We have a card that's about lies and false promises. Here we have the answer is already within, with the key here inside the heart, so that's fairly easy to understand. Transformation, it's the same word in English. Rupture. I think this is my favorite card. I love this card. This little being fighting this huge monster, I love it. So this is a more divinatory kind of part of the deck, which again, like I said, have the pink backings where you can do those past, present, future kind of spreads, or you could do a spreads where it's like the situation at the moment, what's against me, what's helping me, and the outcome, things like that. But you also have here this little pile of blue cards. Those are more self-help, personal development kind of cards, and you can use them more so to understand the general overarching theme of the reading, or the general kind of healing that is needed in your reading. Like, what is the healing theme, what is the personal development theme, what is the lesson at work here in your life. So for example, here we have emotions that needs to be appeased, that needs to be at peace. Here we have anxiety and fears. Here we have throat chakra. Here we have Queen Bee, which was the card I saw that made me buy the deck. I love Beyonce, okay? I can't be helped. And so when I see Queen Bee, I think of Beyonce and I'm like, yes girl, I'm here for it. I mean, it might not even be about Beyonce, but in my head it is, and I need that in my life. Here we have Let Go, Consciousness, Forgiveness, Reharmonization, Family Line. So this would be linked to, if you're picking up this card, it means that the current situation at play has something to do with generational healing or generational patterns, etc. Here we have Past Life card, Self-Love, Inner Child, and Sacral Chakra. You have a Heart Chakra theme card that you can use to understand a little bit deeper about the reading, or you could just mix them in with the deck itself. Overall, I find this deck really interesting. I like the structure. It's totally different to the kind of decks I already have. It's already proven very pertinent. I've done a couple of readings with it for myself and for others, and it has been very impressive how accurate this is, showing the root of the problem, at helping understanding a different point of view. And also I find it great, especially if I'm like faced with a problematic and I'm almost too close to the problem to be doing my own tarot reading, because I'm so close to it that I won't be able to really have the distance I need. This is gonna tell me what's what, because it's a lot more direct and straight to the point. Sometimes it's not what you want, and sometimes it is what you want. And for those occasions when I do need a straight direct answer and insight, I've been really enjoying this one, even though I've not had it long. So thank you so much again for the recommendation. And again, this is called L'Oracle des Medio. I'm pretty sure you can find it on Amazon.fr or any kind of like websites that sells French decks. So my friends, this is the end of my little, not so little deck haul. I hope that it was fun to see all the decks that I've joined my collection. Let me know in the comments what deck you bought recently or you are revisiting in your collection recently that you're really enjoying. I always like to know your points of view. If you have enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the like button, and if you haven't yet, consider subscribing. I upload every single week and I would love to have you join me, but you know, no pressure. And as per usual, until my next video, I am sending you so much good vibes. Thank you so much for being here, and keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!